help. So I'm so excited to talk to you all this morning and explain a little bit more about what careers in computer science can lead to and what that actually looks like. So you all should be able to see my screen presentation. I was like asking for head nods, but that's okay. Can't see your head nods, but you can let me know in the chat if you can't see anything. Here's what we're going to dive into today. Okay, so we'll just start out. I'll give you a little bit more about background about me, how I got to where I am and what I actually do, because that's always a fun question. It wouldn't be a Friday morning if we didn't have a little vocab to kick off with. And the funny thing about this is there's so much jargon in technology that actually having a vocab list is like something I give employees. So you all are going to be a little further ahead of the curve, if you will. I work for a company called High Alpha, and we do things a little bit uniquely. So before I get into the meat of everything, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're set up. And then I see some already questions popping in the chat about what is SaaS, which is software as a service. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and the differences between it, because it's probably something you all interact with every single day and you don't even realize it. And then we're going to go into what is actually the business model, like how does a company make money using software? And then the last section where we spend most of the time is going to be actually like the functions within it. So I'll be curious, as you all are exploring computer science, are there different things? There is a lot of different areas you can go into, and it's not all developing or programming. So I've got about 5 different areas that I'm going to walk you each through of like, what does a day in the life look like? What do you actually study? And what does that pathway kind of look like if you choose to make that your career? And then I'll just finish. We can ask some questions that come in of anything I didn't cover, of just like what I wish I would have known if I was in there as well. Awesome. All right, I'm going to keep going. So my name is Hope Williams, and my title, or what I do as a job, I'm the director of talent. And as I mentioned, I work for a company called High Alpha. So in high school, I was putting this together and I was thinking what might be helpful for you all. In high school, my favorite subjects were English and history. So if I have any other English and history fans out there, you can put it in the chat. When I decided to go to school and university, I didn't really know what I wanted to study, but I felt like business was really broad and there was a lot of different ways that I could go throughout it. So I went to school in a business school and then ended up majoring in international business and marketing. And now the kind of joke that I make quite a bit is that I'm not really directly using either of those degrees, but again, some of the ways that we're going to talk about the skills that apply into tech is a lot more about how you problem solve, how you critically think, and how you take in, things that you've experienced and apply them to the problems that you're looking at. So it doesn't matter as much maybe what exactly you study until we get into some of the discipline-specific things, which I'll call out. And so for my career, I ended up kind of bridging a gap in 2 areas. So I work in recruiting and then I work in HR, and now I oversee both of those functions. Recruiting, probably all familiar with it. I don't know how many of you have jobs right now, but recruiting is all about bringing people into an organization, and then HR is all about supporting people in an organization. And this was a really good fit for me. It's not something I would have told you I wanted to do in high school, but I really like it because I'm always connected to people, and there's a way to be really creative, especially in tech. So that's a little bit about me. I've told you all there would be a vocab list, and this is going to be pretty interactive today. So we have kind of 3 segments of our vocab. You will hear me say these words throughout this presentation today. And as you hear me say them, feel free, chime in the chat that you hear me say them, because they'll be kind of brought in everywhere. But before we start talking through, and I lose people when I talk too fast, want to make sure you all had a good understanding of some of the key terms that we use and what we mean by them. So on the business side, customer is whoever is buying the good, right? You go to the store, you buy milk, you are a customer. A user underneath product is whoever is using the product. So can someone give me an example, maybe in the chat, of a time where you are not the customer, you don't buy the software, but you are the user? It looks like Paul's having issues seeing something. Everyone else can see me okay? Sweet. Okay. Anyone have an example of when you are a user but not a customer? Gifted is something that would count. Yeah, I'll give you an example. How many of you have like Netflix or Disney Plus or ESPN? User of school's Wi-Fi. Yep, people have them. Are your parents paying for that, or are you paying for that? Yeah, that's a good one, Cole. So if your parents are it, they would be the customer, but you all would still be users. So when Netflix is giving updates, right, and you can think about it, especially how they have multiple different profiles, there's a lot of ways that they are building their software product to think about all the users that would be on an account, even if they know only one person is the customer. So there can be some differences when you're thinking about products, who's using it and who the customer is. All right, B2B is a fun little word that you can phrase and sound really smart. That just means you're selling to another business. So if your school goes out and buys new software for you all to use, that is a B2B transaction. One business, the school went and bought from another business. Sweet. B2C is selling to a direct consumer. So that would be something more of like what you all do, right? If you download an app on your phone, that would be a B2C transaction. I'm getting some head nods. Excellent. Okay. And by head nods, I mean virtual head nods. I'm imagining you all head nodding at home. All right, on the product. So how many of you have heard the phrase like to go viral, right? Seems like pretty normal. Virality, yes, Gabriel, is something that we could build into a product to make it go more viral. So people think about this as they're building products. So kind of the king of virality right now is TikTok, right? TikTok is engineered in a way where there's a lot of ways that you can interact and keep plugging into the platform. So you can make your own sound, you can stitch things, you can reply to someone. All of those key components are ways that they're building virality into the platform so that people keep interacting with it. Product-led growth, PLG is the term, again, a really good one to throw out if you want to sound super smart, is when the product itself sells itself. So you all probably maybe think of a time you've gone with your parents to like maybe, a car dealership, right? And you have to talk to a salesperson. How many of you like to talk to someone when you check out at the grocery store versus using self-checkout? Most people like to use self-checkout these days, right? Maybe avoid that interaction, especially if you're only buying a few things. PLG is the same way. Yes, Andrew loves self-checkout. So the product-led growth aspects, it's built so that you never have to talk to a salesperson. So obviously, kind of the really good one to think about here is Zoom. When the pandemic hit, Zoom was really easy to sign up for. You could get a free account and anyone could use it without talking to a salesperson. That's an example of product-led growth. All right, last kind of one things. This is really specific to tech and just a way to think through it. So ARR is how tech companies measure their revenue. And this means annual reoccurring revenue. So when you go buy Netflix, and honestly, it's been a minute since I looked at my Netflix bill, but when you buy Netflix, hypothetically, you sign up for a year in advance, right? That's annual. And then reoccurring just means that you have a component where I could sign up for it again. I want to sign up for it again. And the last two, renewal means you sign up year over year, great, customer renewing. And then churn, again, a good one to sound smart, means that you don't renew their contract. So one of the ways that companies measure how good they are is how many people are leaving their platform. Great, so if you hear me say these words throughout it, customer, user, B2B, B2C, virality, PLG, ARR, renewal, churn, you can just chime into the chat and you can use these throughout your own conversations today and sound really, really cool and smart. All right, so I'm going to explain a little bit about what I actually do every day. So how many of you have seen Shark Tank? Does that resonate? Seen it on TV? Okay, maybe some people. No, you can Google it later. Shark Tank is a TV show, and that's kind of in the world. We're going to talk about venture capital for a second. Venture capital is actually, history lesson, a very unique American thing. And basically, it's all about investing in entrepreneurs, right? So on Shark Tank, they go on, they pitch their products, and then the sharks can invest in their product or not. It's a very simplified version of what venture capital looks like. So my company itself, look, there it is, B2B, I said it first. We create and fund B2B SaaS companies. So Venture Studio is our model. So in one part, we go and raise money and we go invest in new software companies. So if we have entrepreneurs that have a new company, we can write them a check and they can use that to build their business. On the studio side is where I spend most of my time, and this is where our model is a little bit unique. on one hand, yep, we're still giving them those checks to start their businesses, but we also support them in services like design. So I saw a question about Figma there earlier. HR and talent, that would be me. Finance, marketing, sales, a few other areas that help them. And our hope is that they go faster and they build the right product better and they get to market even quicker and are more successful. So that's kind of what we do. And fun fact, we're based in Indianapolis. So we're right downtown and we've been here for the past 7 years. So the way that our kind of difference works, as I mentioned, we'll help design and develop what the product's going to look like. We support them in their marketing and their public relations. We help them with their sales and go to market, the people, talent and HR, finance, and then hospitality and operations. All of our companies are startups. So think about it, they're figuring out what they're going to build, what they're going to sell, and what they're actually serving. And then they also have this opportunity to plug in to us to help them kind of go faster. So if you think that that's easy to explain at Thanksgiving to all your relatives, it is not. So I get used to kind of walking through this quite a bit. So here's kind of the little last bit on us. So we have raised 3 funds. When you think about venture capital, people going out and raise that money. So we're on our 3rd fund. We've been around going into our 8th year. We have launched out of that studio side, we've launched 35 companies. That means an entrepreneur brings us an idea and we actually start that business with them. We've done that quite a bit in the past 8 years, almost 8 years. And then our team itself, one of the things that we'll talk to as we kind of get into more of the details of what roles look like is, for all of you out there, when you find your job or career, whatever that looks like, a difference is like, how big of a company do you work at? Our team's actually pretty small. We're only 50 team members. So everyone knows everyone's name, and we have really close connections with everyone. But, there's companies that are even smaller than that. So some of the decisions you'll have to make is how big of an organization do you want to work at one day? Our office looks a little bit unique. So I mentioned we're in Indianapolis, but we purposely built it, and there are some photos for you all, to be more of a gathering space. So all of our companies are remote or hybrid friendly. So most of our workers might work from home at least once or twice a week. But if they do come in, we host a lot of events. So I think this week we hosted an event almost every single day. And so when you come into our space, or if you ever get the chance to tour it, it feels a little bit different than like cubicles and having just desks everywhere set up for it. I am using Chrome for hop-in, and hopefully now you all see a slide that says software as a service. If it froze for you, reload the page. I promise that's my last really high engineered photos. I don't make all the slides. Sometimes our team gives me slides, and those are usually the nicer ones. All right, sounds like we're good. So someone mentioned earlier that SaaS stands for software as a service. And here's how I want you all to think about it. So back in the day, maybe you once saw a really scary thing in like your parents' basement or in a box, and it was actually a box of software. So back in the day, you would go to like Walmart or GameStop or Office Max or wherever you wanted to, and you would purchase things that looked like that box on your left. And it would say Microsoft Office 2000, 2005, 2007, 2009, right? And you would go take that CD, you would put it in your computer, and you would download the software. And so the difference in the years that I just mentioned is like if you had updates, right, you had to go buy that new box. How many of you have ever purchased software like that? Yeah, like boxes of OS counts, Sky. Yep. Windows 95 would be an example. So the difference is what happened is we moved things all to the cloud, right? Everyone talks about the cloud. What is the cloud? We move away from servers and actually can do that programming and power on the internet. That's the difference, right? So when you go log in to Disney Plus, right, you take your email and your password, you log in, you can watch everything from the internet. You're not pulling up kind of that software. So that's the difference. Software as a service just means in real time, you can go access that software. You're not downloading a programming onto your device to access it. So very normal in how we do it all today in 2022, not as normal as we think back even 15 years ago. All right, so any business has the same principles. I know this is not a business, you all are in computer science classes, but every business is the same principles. You make something, you sell something, and you serve something. And SaaS companies are no different. So we're going to take this step by step. If you were to open a bakery, right, someone has to be the baker. They are actually going to bake the pie. They're going to make it, put it all together. I'm sure it's going to get a little hectic in this bakery, so perhaps you hire someone else to sell it. They run the cash register, they handle the transactions, someone hands the money, they buy that pie. And maybe you have a little bit of a front of the house where people can sit down and enjoy their pie, right? And you might actually have a waitress who is serving the pie. So make, sell, serve, very simple. Any business transaction will always have those components in it. Variations always exist. SaaS is no different, right? So we don't make pies. I guess we make virtual pies. But SaaS is no different. So under the make side, the people who do that are engineers and designers. The people who sell the software are sales and marketing. And then people for us who serve the customers, we call customer success. Not customer service, customer success. And we'll explain some of those differences. So we're going to go through each of these and kind of talk about what does day in the life look at, what do those career paths look like, and what are the things that you need to be in that one. So we'll start in this order with engineering. So engineering, I put a fire emoji because this is always a high in demand job, meaning that we are always trying to hire more engineers. Even since I've been in the career, I mean, engineering is always something that companies are hiring in tech. The roles, and this just means like, what do job titles look like? If you go out there and look for some jobs today, what would these jobs look like? Software engineer and software developer are used pretty interchangeably. These are people who are utilizing coding languages. Maybe they're doing focus on data storage or developing the user experience. And how does someone like progress in their career? You start to develop the strategy for how to design or how to develop the product. And so one of the things that always feels hard for me to explain is like, what does actually that mean? Like, what does your day look like with it? So some of the things I call for the day in the life, most engineers work autonomously within a team. They break down the work that they need to do that day, and then they actually have their own work streams that they divide off and go and work through. So you have a lot of autonomy, a lot of independence in your day. You don't have too many meetings or calls if you think about it. You actually just get assigned, your own kind of segment of work. Your workload or how much you have to do is based on the output of code. How fast, how clean, how productive can you be with developing those new features? And that's how your performance is measured as well. So some of the different career paths in there can look like going into a software architect. That's someone who's going to more look at the overall framework of the software. If you really like managing engineers or managing teams, you can kind of move more into that director level. You have developer operations, which helps kind of pull everything together and the segmentation of it. Or moving more into like a product role, which product for us just means you're tying in engineering, design, and customer needs all into one. I would say if you're interested in this career path, the two ways to kind of approach it would be there's a lot more coding boot camps that exist now that companies hire from as well, or studying something related to computer science in college. I think it was always hard for me to understand, like, what did salaries look like for different roles and why when I was in high school. So I would say average kind of starting salary within software engineering for SaaS companies, especially right now, is somewhere between 70 and 85,000. Why is it paid so much, right? It's highly in demand. It's not a skill set everyone can do. And so one of the things that you all have to evaluate as you're in high school, right, is like, what's going to make you happy and what do you want to pursue? And so software engineering paid a lot more because it's always in demand. Companies are always hiring it. All right. I'm going to switch gears now and talk a little about customer success. So there's a lot of ways to be in tech without just being an engineer or a developer, like not actually touching code. So the difference for us when we say customer success and versus like customer service is customer success means exactly that. You are helping people be successful. It's a little bit more strategic. It's a little bit more relationship driven than just answering phones or responding to a chat with someone having a issue logging in. You actually meet with customers to help define their goals, what they actually want to achieve by purchasing the software, and help them understand it. So the roles here look like customer success specialist, a little bit higher would be a customer success manager. What are the skills that you need into this? A lot of project management. So think about the deadlines that you have to take with your homework, and then building that into helping customers reach their goals. You have to develop relationships, so understanding what someone's business is like and guiding them through that, and a lot of teaching and guiding. This is something that I think if you have an interest of coaching other people or like teaching, keep in mind that doesn't mean you just have to be a teacher. You can use those skills in business as well. And so if you're going through into the career path here, you have the strategy into defining customer needs and managing account upsells. And so most customer success work with a range of accounts. This is always post-sale, so you're not selling in this role. You have meetings on a regular cadence, and then you're responsible for tasks like outside the call. And your performance is measured on renewals. Did anyone catch the vocab word? Yes. And engagement. It was a quiz time. What are customer success people trying to prevent? Anyone remember the vocab list? Starts with a C, CH. Churn, Geronimo got it right. Awesome. And so career paths in customer success can look like becoming a director, moving into something called partnerships, where you're helping develop different relationships with other people in the industry, or maybe even moving into more of an operations specific function, or kind of an account manager where you'd be both in charge of selling and managing the account afterwards. So the education you'll typically see on job descriptions that most require a bachelor's degree or an equivalent amount of skills and experience. So a lot of people that I know that have moved into this role have experience working directly customer facing over a period of time. This job would start a little bit lower, but that's because it's not as technical requirement as engineering. I'm going to keep going unless you all have questions. We'll have time for questions at the end, so I'm going to keep moving. All right, marketing. So marketing and tech. So I was a marketing major, if you all remember, right? And so one of the things that I thought incorrectly is that marketing would be super like creative and you would get to design things. And marketing is actually really, really data driven. So if you like data and you like numbers, marketing actually is very, very focused onto this. And so the roles that you'll see are marketing specialist or associate for entry-level roles. And then I called out kind of 3 different types of marketing that you could see as well. Digital marketing would be, I want you all to think of Google ads, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, all goes into digital marketing. Growth marketing for us means you are focused on somehow selling. We talked about like PLG and some of those different ways. That was a vocab work as well. PLG and kind of building in. Growth marketing helps those companies because, again, they don't have salespeople. And then field marketing, this was a fun fact that I once learned. Field marketing means out in the field. So if you ever see conferences or people going different areas and actually having a marketing person out there, that is field marketing, right? You're not actually in a field, but you're outside the business. Skills, project management, again, managing those deadlines. Does anyone know what a CRM stands for? Writing is always really important. Email campaigns, SEO, or search engine optimization, aka what we all see on Google. No guesses for CRM. I'll keep going. Progression in marketing looks like developing the strategy into helping them figure out how to acquire new customers or lowering the cost to acquire customers. So again, all comes back to data. Most marketers work very closely with sales and customer success. You would have meetings on a regular cadence and be responsible for those tasks outside of calls. And your performance is measured on pipeline. So think about what sales deals do we have that are being built, or new customer leads. Different ways to progress all in those different areas that I mentioned, and then of course kind of moving into more of a marketing operations or leading a marketing team. Marketing starts a little bit lower than other functions, but again, because it is so tied to sales and data, it has opportunity to earn a lot more, especially as you prove the output there as well. All right, design got another fire emoji. So someone mentioned Figma earlier in the chat. So the roles in design, when we say design, I'm not really talking about a graphic designer. It's more about people who are using Figma, right? UI, UX designer, product designer. Ooh, yes, CRM was customer relationship management. So taking care of customers. Excellent. So design uses all sorts of Figma and Adobe Illustrator would be other ones, etc. But this is all how like software is actually designed. When we say design, not as much graphic design, more focused on actual product design. So the tools that people use are like things like Stitch, Sketch, Illustrator, Figma. The languages would be like HTML, CSS. Progression can lead more into product, brand, or creative, and there's a lot of salary potential here. Most designers work extremely cross-functionally, but then manage their time with the heads down time. So as you think about it, am I better working by myself or in a team? A lot of designers will have that kind of alone time to actually work on their design. The performance is measured on the design queue and the features. Again, go back to engineering, like how fast are we achieving what we need to actually design, and then helping the team think more strategically about design. So progression can be moving into more product or brand. Again, brand is still kind of a subcategory here, moving more into product or becoming kind of the leader, the manager of it. There are a lot more coding boot camps that are dedicated to design and UI UX now than there ever have been, or you can study kind of UI UX in college as well. Salary is going to be higher than the other ones, kind of similar to engineering. It's more technical, more in demand. There's a higher need for it. And I would just say probably if you would have asked me 8 months ago, like design is the #1 role we are always hiring for, and it's super, super hard to find. So definitely a really good skill path if you are interested or in creative at all. All right, and then last but not least, I got sales. So sales in SaaS looks a little bit different. It has roles here would be sales development representative, business development representative, and then account executive is another title you would see. So the skills you need here are someone who's self-motivated, has great communication, and is very resilient. You would progress into closing deals. Many SDR or BDRs pivot into other functions because it's an easier to get into entry-level job. Sales, I would say, is the best way to learn a company's business. You can't sell something unless you actually know what it's like. So the day in the life of what does this actually look like? Like you're not at a cash register, right? So you'd have a list of prospective customers, and then you'd have an activity amount to complete. So that might look like emails, phone calls, LinkedIn messages, or contacting people on other mediums as well. Once you have a prospect that's like, yeah, I want to meet and talk to Hope about her software, you would then schedule the meeting with the account executive that they support. Education-wise, this one is a really, again, the easiest path into software or into tech, having previous sales experience. You would always have kind of a base salary, and then depending on how much you sell, you get a percentage of that. So you can earn a lot more than just your base salary. Different ways, again, people can start here, but not all of them stay in sales. They can move to other pathways like marketing, product, or customer success, or continuing to grow in that sales pathway. All right. So lastly, before we break for a few questions, I would just say that things that I wish if I would have known in your seats when I was back in high school, because as I mentioned, I never thought that I would be in tech or be in the job that I had when I was your age. So I talked to a lot of companies. I support about 15 different companies right now. And I would just say, like, what do I hear the most from employers? Like, what skills do they need? And I'll relate this to kind of what you all are doing now. So at the end of the day, employees are responsible for hitting deadlines and managing their work and outcomes. And this comes especially as we have remote teams and remote companies where everyone is at home or on their own schedule every day. you are held accountable to those. And so I would encourage you to think of the way, with your homework or with other things and projects that you're working on in school, you're responsible for managing that work and ultimately making sure it's a good project or a good paper or whatever it is. The things that I hear the most from employers of what they want, it's actually curiosity, critical thinking, and the ability to learn. I know that we're always in school and having, things told to us, but being curious, being inquisitive, that will always serve you well, because it could be, well, why is the data pulling that way? Or why are we getting that error message in the code? Asking those questions and proactively going to figure out, that's not something that someone can teach you or hold you responsible for. It's more so about being able to do that yourself. Communicating clearly, whether that's in an email, whether that's presenting like we are today, or just one-on-one if I'm asking for a project update or how is that customer. So really being able to clearly communicate, answer questions in a concise way is always, always, always something looking for. So managing your work, being curious and inquisitive, and clearly communicating are all things that you can practice now that are just going to help you so much later, because we continue to use those. And then finally, how could you prepare now for jobs in the real world, or kind of thinking about that future career? The number one thing I would say is you are not responsible for knowing everything. All of the technology that comes out changes so fast. So the coding languages our companies are using to build their platforms today didn't exist 2-3 years ago. Our software engineers train themselves to learn other languages throughout their time, right? So you can learn how to code or how to produce it. So you're not responsible for knowing everything. You're going to have updates, but you're responsible for being able to learn and move forward. It does matter how you work with others. I can't tell you how frustrated I used to get with group projects and working with others, but every single day I work with others. There's really no role where you would not be interacting with others if you work in a company. So always, 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 it matters how you work. And then finally, I think I had a really hard time understanding how business wasn't boring in high school. And so I would just encourage you all, business jobs are not boring jobs. There's a lot of different ways you can go into it. And even if it feels hard to understand, do I want to be in sales or marketing or work with customers, you can always make a difference if you go into this as well. All right, so with that, I will wrap up. Always feel free if you have questions about what jobs look like, what SaaS looks like, what we're doing with Venture, and how we're supporting companies here. Happy to answer anything. My email is really easy. It's hope@hialpha.com. But I'll pause and see if there's any questions that have come in the last that I can answer. Do I have fun working? Great question, Andrew. I do have a lot of fun working. I think what I enjoy the most about it is every day is different for me, and we move super, super fast. Like I'll tell you, this year alone, we've started 4 new companies. And so when you think about that, that's just really motivating to me to work someplace that moves so fast, and every day is a little bit different. Jonathan asked, what do SaaS companies do exactly? And that's a great question, Jonathan. Here's how I would encourage you to think about it. SaaS can be used for anything. It's like a tool, right? If you were to go out and mow your lawn, SaaS is just the lawnmower, right? But SaaS can be applied to so many different areas. So some of our companies help people with cybersecurity threats. Some of our companies help food artisans sell their products. Some of our companies help marketers reach their customers and measure the results. All of those 3 things, very, very different. They all are technology. They're all software, but really software is just the tool. So as you go about, and if you have an interest in entrepreneurship, here's how we do it. Find a problem, right? Something where you're like, that could be better. How could technology help solve that problem? Those are our 2 questions. And working through that is how you can apply that exactly as well. What's the best tech college around Indy? Ooh, good question, Gabriel. I would say the companies that we recruit the most from would be Purdue or IU, and those have differences as well. Rose-Hulman is also a really good one if you want like really top software engineers, but I would say most of our companies partner with Purdue or IU. IUPUI kind of also fitting in there. We host a lot of IUP students on campus. Software engineering jobs. Review in terms of like what do they do, or review and like how I think people like to work with them. I would say, in a nutshell, reviewing software engineer jobs, I would say most of them get to work a lot autonomously. They get their own work and kind of what they're working on each day. And a lot of our software engineers like working in startups because they're building net new code. If you work at a larger organization, you might have to fix old code that someone else did. And a lot of our engineers, probably like maybe a lot of you, they like knowing what's in there, right? And if it's their own code and they built it themselves, it's like brand new and exciting versus going to check some old code that someone wrote 20 years ago. All right, I'm going to scroll, make sure I'm answering all the questions. All right. Pink says, your mom got a certification for Ivy Tech. She goes on fixing tech. Yes. Okay, for developing video games. Yes. So you can have different pathways. There are people who probably don't produce as much code, right? So all I just mentioned, our engineers are net new writing. There are people who are hired to go in and fix code, right? And to go and find those bugs and pull in all those things. You can specialize in video games if that's really where you want to specialize or focus in. I would say for that, a lot of those companies are based out of California or maybe have engineering teams based out of there, but absolutely you could specialize in kind of the video game development. We have talked a lot, you have Web3 and the metaverse coming online and a lot of different ways that tech is changing in that area. And I would just encourage you, like, it's a fast changing environment. Always got to be willing to learn, but absolutely. Awesome. Sky asked, in any field of work, does it involve soldering? I'm not sure what that would be, but I would say, in a nutshell, I think business jobs have a lot of different variety into them and a lot of different ways to pull in your skill sets. I think that is times. Ooh, good boot camps in Indiana. Yes. Kinsey Academy, 1150. Those are really good ones that we hire a lot from. I will think of a few more as well, but Kinsey Academy and 1150 are both based here in the state, and we hire a lot from them. I'm not sure if you would need more than a certificate for video games, but it might just depend on what exact job you want in the job that they're hiring for. Whiz pins. All right, I think that's all my time. Thank you all so much.